Let's start with that stimulus conversation. The latest update, please, Larry. Where are we?
Well, the ball's not moving much right now. I mean, the two sides are still talking, and the committee chairs in the Senate and House, the relevant committees, they're talking on a lot of these issues, appropriations, small business, banking, and so forth and so on. So there's that. That's a good thing. On the other hand, there's still policy issues that divide the two teams. President mentioned some of them last night. He doesn't want to bail out poorly run states and local governments and their pension funds and so forth. So that's an issue. There are other policy issues that remain unresolved. So it's very difficult. The clock is ticking, as you know. Be very difficult. Even if you had a deal in the next few days, you got to go through the committee print, and then you got to have votes in the House and the Senate. So it's not going to be easy. I don't want to predict anything. I'm just saying there's more agreement than there was a while back. There are still policy disagreements, some numerical disagreements. So we'll see. It's still up for grabs.
Well, let's start with numerical, then we'll get to substance. Larry, what numerical disagreement is there right now?
Well, I think that in specific areas, I mean, I'm not going to get involved in negotiating, Jonathan, this morning, but in specific areas, there are numerical issues. Now, President Trump, for example, has said, for, let's say, the checks, the mailed-out checks for economic assistance, he's willing to bid higher on that. He has no problem. He's willing to go with PPP for the small businesses. No problem. He's willing to help the airlines. No problem on that score. He's always been willing to do these things. He's willing to help the schools as they, of course, transition and renovate to make school openings safe and, cover the health guidelines. He's willing to do that. He's not willing, though, to pour lots of money into various health care schemes that might benefit folks who are not U.S. citizens. He has a big problem with that. I just mentioned some of the state and local issues and the pension issues, and there are other issues at stake. One thing that's interesting that's come up in the Mnuchin, Secretary Mnuchin proposal, I'll call it the Republican proposal, we are very much we're keen on onshoring for all kinds of supply chains, including pharmaceuticals and related equipment. That's very darn important. And we would like to reward companies that either come to the U.S. for the first time or move back from China or wherever. So we propose investment tax credits. Apparently, the other side doesn't like that. We've also proposed deductions for restaurant meals and other forms of hospitality and entertainment. Apparently, the numbers there are sticking points. So I can't go through the entire list. I'm just going to say there are still issues.
I think many people feel like we're just going around in circles at the moment, Larry, as we drift towards the election. One question that's been asked by many, in fact, is whether both sides are negotiating in good faith. Now, of course, you're not going to say that about yourself, but I do wonder, do you think the other side is negotiating in good faith? Do you think Speaker Pelosi is negotiating in good faith, or is this just political posturing with 11 days to go?
Well, look, I'm not a political analyst. I don't do personal stuff. I can't get into everybody's head. I'm just going to assume that we've been at this since July or mid-July, that there is good faith. At this point, I'm not even sure what that means. Look, there's very hard-headed, experienced, professional people engaged in these discussions. There are veterans, all right? Speaker Pelosi is a veteran. Mr. Mnuchin is a terrific money man. He knows the budget story up and down, including taxes. Senator McConnell is a very crafty, wily veteran in these games. So they are engaged. They are talking, Jonathan. And I will ascribe, how about this? I will ascribe good faith to all sides. I'm not going to peck away on that. Let's just see, though.
Well, the president's done that for you. Sure.
Well, look,
the President of the United States said yesterday evening Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she thinks it will help her politically not to.
Well, I'll leave that to the President. If that's his view, that's his view. And I'm a policy guy, Jonathan. I don't have a view on that sort of thing.
I appreciate that.
All I want to say is this. We are in a very, very strong recovery. The V-shaped recovery is coming on, very strong. We had phenomenal numbers yesterday on falling unemployment claims and rising existing home sales. But there are areas of this economy that could benefit from assistance. I acknowledge that. I don't think the recovery depends on assistance, but the PPP lending for small businesses would be very helpful. President Trump took the lead a while back on providing federal unemployment assistance by an executive order with a plus up from the states. It would be very helpful if Congress appropriated that in some formal way. There's unspent funds all over the place from last spring's bill. Why not repurpose that and legislate it, put it in, codify it? It's not forever. It might be 3 months or 6 months. That could help Americans. We need the airlines. That could help the economy, put people back to work, get kids back to school. So I just, sometimes think instead of these 2,000-page bills with gargantuan numbers, why not just have, separate votes on specific items? That's the way appropriations used to be many decades ago.
I have to say, you sound a lot more like a Senate Republican than you do a member of this administration, because that sounds like the position of Leader McConnell. When you say the V-shaped economy is coming on very strong, if I'm a Senate Republican right now, I'm wondering, OK, if Larry's right, why do we need a $2 trillion package if the V-shaped recovery is coming along very strong? Why do we?
Well, let me say, I have many, many friends among Senate Republicans, and I speak at their breakfasts and lunches all the time. But I am the NEC director for President Trump, who has given me a great opportunity, and I'm doing my best to help him out on all these issues. So don't suggest that I'm on one side or another. By the way,
well, Larry, you'll forgive me. It just looks like there's a bit of daylight between the president's position and yours at the moment.
There is no daylight between the president's position and mine. I support him entirely. I'm giving you his thoughts on why these numbers don't add up and why these policies don't yet work. That's the best I can do. I'm not going to predict an outcome, Jonathan. Yes, maybe, no, maybe. I mean, I'm not here to do that. I just give you a lay of the land.
And I appreciate you doing that. Did Leader McConnell tell the White House not to accept a deal?
I am not aware of that. I am not aware of that.
Because reportedly he told colleagues that he had told the White House exactly that, not to accept a deal. The president seems to think, according to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, that he can lean on Senate Republicans. And from where I'm sitting and where others are as well, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of that, Larry. Why the confidence that you can lean on Senate Republicans to pass a bill that big?
What I've heard from the president, we had a long meeting Wednesday. What I've heard from Chief Meadows and what I've heard from Secretary Mnuchin is that Leader McConnell and the GOP conference in the Senate would be willing to support a bill as long as it is a genuinely bipartisan bill and that their asks are included. For example, we haven't talked about liability insurance. That is a controversial matter with the House team, but it's an important key ask for the Senate Republicans. If there's a genuinely bipartisan bill, Leader McConnell has said, and I've heard it from the president, Mark Meadows, Mnuchin, they'd go along with it. So I'll just leave it there. I can't speak for one side. I can't speak for Mr. McConnell, but I'm just saying that's what I've heard.
On liability protection, have you made any progress whatsoever in the last month with House Democrats?
Jonathan, I'm not going to get involved in that sort of thing. You know I can't do that. I'm not going to negotiate.
Why not, Larry? I mean, you've given me enough information so far on how the talks are going. I'm just trying to work out whether you've made any progress on that particular topic, and it seems to be a huge sticking point for negotiations.
Because you're such a great journalist, Jonathan, I'd love to give you as much information as possible, but I cannot include you in the negotiations.
Larry, what's the plan B? When do you walk away? You've seen this a million times. At some point, you realise nothing gets done.
Well, look, we have an election in, 11 days? Yeah. So the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. I mean, just mechanically, It takes a while. You got to vote in both houses. You might have to have a conference vote. Now, that could be done fast, but, you know, it would take a day or two. Just writing up the legislative print of a 2,000-plus page bill takes time. And then you have the issue of the operational executions. All right? I don't know that that could be done. Mailing checks, re-engaging the lending programs for small businesses. We would do the best we can. Secretary Mnuchin did a heck of a job last spring, but I don't know between now and the election. So those are still dangling in the air.
Well, Larry, if you can't get it done now, and this is my final question, you've given us so much time this morning, and I appreciate that, thank you. It doesn't look like you've made a lot of progress on state aid. It doesn't look like you've made a lot of progress on liability protections. You can't confirm or deny that right now. If you can't get this done in the next 11 days, why would you be able to get this done before January?
Well, we're going to take this a day at a time. The election results will undoubtedly bear heavily on this. And remember, of course, the Congress is still in session. There's a so-called lame duck session that will come up. You've got a judicial vote coming, I believe, next week with respect to Ms. Barrett, highly qualified, terrific candidate for the Supreme Court. So it's tricky business. And the clock is ticking, so we will see. I don't want to make any predictions. What I do know is this, Jonathan. The economy is running faster and hotter than almost anybody thought possible. And as President Trump said last night, with great clarity, he is not going to allow tax hikes or regulatory hikes. He's for lowering taxes and regulation. He completely opposes a government takeover of health care. He completely opposes an end to oil and natural gas, which would be devastating for the economy. You got economists, distinguished economists at the Hoover Institute at Stanford, who say those policies would lose 10% of GDP. 5 million jobs. Middle-class families would lose $6,500, their whole increase under Trump, which was a record increase. That's what the president opposes. He doesn't see a dark winter. He sees an optimistic recovery and prosperity. The other team looks to me like very pessimism and a stagnation decline scenario. Those came out in the debate last night, and I think that's going to bear heavily on November's results.